my name is Alex Lavalley. I'm an honors pure mathematics student here at Waterloo, my 3A term, and I've been the president of the Mathematics Society since the end of June. Previously, I was the executive of the Pure Math, Applied Math, Combinatorics, and Optimization Club, and I've also sat on MathStock's Council and Board of Directors. Welcome to our Entrepreneurship and Impact series. Before we go any further, we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is centralized within the Office of Indigenous Relations. Today, we are joined by Ravi Sood. Ravi is a seasoned entrepreneur and executive with global experience in project development, proprietary trading, asset management, and capital markets. He has founded and led ventures across mining, renewable energy, agriculture, and financial services. Ravi has overseen numerous equity and debt financing, acquisitions, and divestitures across 4 continents. He serves as the director of several public and private companies, where he has played an active role in governance, oversight, and strategy. Ravi holds a Bachelor's of Mathematics honors from the University of Waterloo, where he is a Descartes Fellow and National Corporate Scholar. Without further ado, I invite you to join me in welcoming Ravi.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you to the university for having me. It's been like a real treat for me to come back. I haven't been in this building since 1998, so a real walk down memory lane for me. I'm going to talk to you, just going to give you like some real highlight snapshots of my career. And just before I do that, I just want to put in your minds, like literally none of this was preconceived or in my head during my years here. I came here, I was very academically focused. Like my intention was I would go to graduate school and I would become a professor. Like I really didn't even contemplate anything else. I never thought about a stock or a business, or like just business was like kind of like, not dirty, but like, you know, that's those guys think of business stuff. Like I'm focused on the real deal, math. That was what I cared about, and it was really the only thing in my mind, period, like nothing. And circumstances sort of knocked me off that and set me like in several time periods of my career, and I'll take you through it. And I guess just the thought to leave you with before I start is that a lot of doors are open that you may think are not open, or you may think you're already on a path because you're in math or you're doing this or engineering, whatever you're doing, and it's just not the case. Like, and I'm living proof of that. And some of the stuff is just like, I can't believe it. And I was writing up these points in the slide. I'm like, how the heck did I end up doing that? That's crazy. But here I am. So it happened. It's real. And apropos, I throw this picture up as my title slide. It's a truck for a loader for underground mining. And I remember from the first weeks when I started in the investment business right after school, we'd see about 10 different management teams come to our office presenting their businesses every week. This was the late 90s, so it was basically all .com and all networking, all internet, all that sort of stuff. But we're in Toronto, so the odd mining company would slip in there. And I remember thinking to myself, first of all, it was like, they're all guys with gray hair and beards. So I'm like, now I have gray hair. And they were always the worst presenters and worst presentations. And I remember thinking to myself, do we still mine stuff? Like, is it necessary? Like, can we move beyond that? It's 1998, everybody. Here I am, like decades later, and like my main business is mining, and I also have difficulty reconciling that sometimes, because I clearly remember being irritated at being subjected to guys talking about mining 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So first off, the journey, I was here from 93 to 98, and I have a lot of gratitude towards this university. And I'll hit you with the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So when I was trying to get into university, I applied to Western, U of T, and Waterloo. I actually didn't get into the other two. And Waterloo, in their wisdom, gave me a full scholarship. And I actually got multiple scholarships here. And so that really enabled me to go here. I didn't even get into the other one. So the university saw something in me and that I'm very grateful for. that enabled my whole path. And so in my case, it was a lot to do with math contests where, somehow they weighed something from those results over my marks or other things in my background. And that really just gave me the opportunity. So huge gratitude for me towards this institution. I did get into grad school, and that was my intention, like I told you at the beginning, and it was 1998. I was going to go to University of Chicago. My plan was to do my master's and PhD there. I got stuck on figuring out how to fund it. So obviously, any of us, not Americans going to the US or foreign students, family circumstance, I did not have, my parents were not in this country. I didn't have anybody to co-sign on a student loan, and I did not have funding from the school. So I just got frozen, and I deferred my admission a year. And by again, one of these crazy, circumstances or turns of events, a professor that I had done some coding work for, he had never taught me in class, but I'd done some coding work for him. I was literally complaining to the guy about how I couldn't pay for grad school and like, woe is me. And he said, guess what? I'm quitting my job and I'm doing something totally different. I'm gonna go trade stocks on the trading floor in Toronto. You can work for me for a year. And I said, are you insane? Because like I never heard of the stock, I never taken accounting, I didn't know anything about that. And he said, I don't know anything about it either. He's actually a physics professor. Don't worry about it. We're super smart. We're good. And so I literally went and I started working on that trading floor, coming out of an undergraduate math degree, and it was really crazy. Everybody's swearing all the time. The phone rings every 2 seconds. So for a guy who was like me, who's very scholastic and sheltered and like very at home here, I did not like it initially, but then I kind of got the hang of it. And then after a couple months, we all got fired. It was nothing to do with us. It was an Asian financial crisis, and the firm that we worked for, which is Deutsche Bank, just literally let go of everybody in Toronto. So again, I was set adrift by circumstance. Didn't have enough money to start graduate school the next year still. Stuck with a lease in Toronto now that I'd signed up for. And fate smiled on me again, and through a friend of a friend of a friend, I met a very, very senior person in financial markets. He had just sold his firm to the Bank of Montreal. It's now BMO Capital Markets or BMO Nesbitt Burns. So he was the CEO of that firm for 27 years. And he had just resigned as vice chairman of the Bank of Montreal. And he was looking for somebody who knew what the internet was. He was a gentleman in his late 60s and had hired a bookkeeper and a receptionist and in-house counsel, and that was it. So he was starting a family office, a huge amount of money to invest, and said, yeah, okay, you know what the internet is, you're hired. And I said, okay, but now I got something to do for the next 8 months before I moved to Chicago. And fast forward those 8 months, 10 days before I moved, I put my deposit for residence. I was like ready to go to Chicago. He called me to his office and said, actually, it wasn't a question, it was just a statement. Actually, you're not going, you're gonna stay here and work for me. And any questions? And I said, no, sir. And I never had a job since. And in fact, fast forward 5 more years, and he made me the CEO of his family office, and we started an investment firm together, which was called Lawrence Asset Management. We built that up. That was my sort of that was a 2000, 2001 sort of existential crisis for me as well. That was like the tech bubble burst. Stock markets were down September 11th. Everything was like the world was ending. And a lot of people just said, okay, I'm going to go to MBA school and do something. And I said, okay, I can go have my shot at grad school finally. But I kind of I got too dumb in those 2 years. This wasn't it. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And instead, I decided to team up with backing from this person that I met by happenstance, and started the asset management firm and made me the CEO. 2003 was another huge fluke for me. I was doing things, I was figuring stuff out as I went. Again, I had no business background, nobody in my family around me. And, maybe that's just one of the things I can do today is just show you that somebody in your sphere has done it. It is possible, but I had never seen it before. So I was just figuring out everything as I was going. So I was trying to figure out how do we build up the brand. And light struck me a colleague of mine was contacted by the producer of BNN, it's now called Business News Network, and people used to watch TV, it used to be a bigger deal, and said, we got, everybody's boring, we're talking about PE ratios and GDP growth and stuff on this channel, nobody watches your channel, it sucks. What are you gonna do about this? And he said, hey, I got this guy, and he's like totally different, and it's like, look, doesn't sound like anybody else you got on your channel, looks different, sounds different, talking about different stuff. Maybe have this guy on. And they had me on, and I gave a couple of pretty technical interviews about very specific subjects. And a couple weeks later, I got a call and they said, do you want to host the 5 o'clock news? And I was like, okay, I got a day job, and then what do I know about hosting the news? That's, again, it's ridiculous. And it would be Monday to Friday. And what the catalyst for this was, you guys probably have heard of Kevin O'Leary. So he was just starting in TV, and he was partnered with Amanda Lang. You might not have heard of Amanda, she's on CBC. But the two of them are there, and Amanda was going on maternity leave for half a year. And they said, we want you to sub in for Amanda. And I was like, that's absolutely nuts. And I said, what? I just need to do it anyways. So I did it. And it was a real pivot point in my career. It was like the absolute greatest multiplier of all time. I would go in before I was like do a presentation trying to sell the different products I was offering, and I was lucky to get 5 guys in the room and try and generate interest. Like, can you call somebody? I don't want to look so empty. Like, get some people in there. And after a few months of me being on TV every day, even though I was just reading stuff off a teleprompter and interviewing people, I wasn't even just doing anything, my credibility factor had gone up by 1,000. And so it totally transformed my career. It just changed everything. Every meeting, people were dying to go to it. Every presentation, rooms were full. It was the single biggest thing I could point to in my career in terms of a pivot point. So I didn't set out to do it, lightning struck. The only thing I did was I said yes, and I went for it. So big deal for me. 2008, 2009, double disaster for me. 2008 was the financial crisis, and it looked like a common question for a presentation like this is like, what would you do different, or what do you regret, what did you do wrong? And I would say there are very few things in my life or career that I regret, but one thing where I could say I really went in with a big combination of arrogance and just lack of knowledge was, I came from no background in investing and had a lot of early success, and that compounded into a lot of arrogance and confidence. As a result, we were super exposed, I'd say more than most, going in the financial crisis, and took a hard hit. Having said that, I'm still a young guy and still super motivated and ambitious, and I was able to recover my business most of the way back. And just as I did that in 2009, my partner, the backer, the gentleman who had sold his firm to the Bank of Montreal that sort of set me on this path, died in a plane crash. So that was, there was a sign on many levels, and I took it very much as a sign from the universe. Okay, maybe time to do something different. So that was my investment firm, and I said, okay, that day I said, I'm selling it. So I sold it. It took a better part of a year between sales process, cleaning up stuff, buying out my late partner, and regulatory approvals. It's the regulated entity in financial services. And that set me on a completely strange and crazy path that was even much more unusual than what I'd done to date. And I titled these slides An Unexpected Journey. That is a Tolkien reference in case anybody caught it. Prove that I have a math grad. And I just list some of the things that I've done, most of them here. My day job right now is I'm the CEO of a mining company with operations in South Africa and New Mexico. So they put underground mines. It's a company I founded and I funded. I bought both of these mines out of restructuring processes, like basically bankruptcy, and I put Humpty back together again. So I put teams around them, I raised money, and put the mine in South Africa back into operation. We now employ about 250 people. And we're the one in New Mexico, that one I bought at the doldrums of the gold market about 10 years ago. The one in New Mexico I bought during COVID. It went bankrupt and had just site access issues and other things that were happening during COVID. I sat on it the last 5 years, and I'm putting that one back into production early next year. So that will employ about 70 to 80 people. people in total. Totally, like, you know, again, nothing, what do I know about mining? Like, almost nothing. But what I'm bringing to the table is just, I guess, the ambition, the energy, and just keep showing up and finding these deals and pulling together the capital and the people around them. Second day job for me is renewable energy. Like, I a lot of things that I do, but my 2 day jobs are mining and renewables. And I'm on my 3rd renewables company. So the first 2 I've started, funded, built, sold. The second one, we sold that in 2022. We operated 2 hydro plants, 2 solar facilities, and 2 wind farms. And I sold that, and I was able to keep, you know, renewables, if you know much about them, for the most part, they don't take in people. So they're remote facilities, like, operated on an Android operating system. And so they were asset sales. It was bought by a private equity fund. And so I was able to keep my whole development team, which is in Bucharest, Romania, and then a team of engineers and basically project developers. And the next day I incorporated a new company in Canada, Abraxas, and just started all over again. Same band, same plan, and just a little bit more credibility, because now I'd done 2 of them in renewables and they both worked and people kind of made money. And so I had a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more confidence, and able to start the you know, projects earlier, because just more knowledge about the industry and how to do it. So we have projects there in the Maldives. It's a really novel one, 150-acre floating solar array. Provide 50% of the power to the Maldives capital city. It's 500,000 people. All that power is currently imported as heavy fuel oil and diesel by ship, and we're displacing that all with solar. Of course, that's like environmentally positive, but this is a case of where renewables are at today. It's all dollars and cents. We don't get any credits or subsidies or anything like that. We're selling it to the Maldivian government at 15 cents per kilowatt. Their cost was about 34 cents a kilowatt to import heavy fuel oil. So carbon footprint down, all sorts of environmental positives, the energy security. Honestly, nobody really cares. Like, maybe somebody cares and they should care, but it was all driven by dollars and cents. So the good framing for where renewables are at today versus, like, you hear a lot of complaints. I'm like, well, it's not economic versus oil and gas. That's nonsense. That was true 25 years ago, and it's not true today. Renewables can beat fossil fuels in the right scenarios easily. So that's another super fun one for me, because it's different countries. We're in Sri Lanka, we're in Newfoundland, Canada, and we're in Romania with our projects that we're developing. Each one's a bit of a different secret sauce in how to fund it, how to staff it, how to win the deal, but they all have the same skill set, and it's a Canadian company, but as I said, our development team's in Bucharest. Spark Systems, this is the closest thing like I'm doing that has anything remotely to do with my background. So this is inverters, it's power electronics. And inverters taking AC to DC, DC to AC is like a 100-year-old piece of power electronics, but it's fundamentally like a mechanical process. You use a lot of parts, notably electrolytic capacitors, and we're doing it with software. So it's like using advanced mathematics to translate what was a very mechanical process into something that's a very digital process. That different architecture allows a lot of additional functionality and a lot of cost savings. So it's a fundamentally different architecture. Also removes the electrolytic capacitor from it, which has the point of failure which lasts at most 11 years. So that at least is something a little bit mathematical. That I've been chairman of that company for 8 years. And it's a super fun one. I'm the only guy in the entire company who doesn't have a PhD, so I feel pretty dumb with those guys. Just another one that I'll really focus on, Elemental Royalty Corp. This is a new one. This is a gold financing vehicle, but what's super cool about there is I was put on the board by something called Tether, and maybe a few of you know what Tether is. It's the largest stable coin. By trading volume, it's by far the largest cryptocurrency. And they're an extremely profitable company, and I think they're number 11 now in terms of ownership of U.S. Treasury. So they're actually a systematically important company in the global financial system. And through personal relationship, they've put me as their board representative onto a financing company that they created, that they didn't create, they control, called Elemental. So another cool one. Again, these are like all things none of these things I had in my head they are so far from what I was thinking. My plan was I was going to be a professor one day. Maybe one day soon. So I can't rule it out in the future. Another crazy one, I saw like one more. Feronia. This was the Unilever asset. So Unilever is a pretty famous company. Ben and Jerry's ice cream, Chunky Monkey, Palm Olive, another famous product, but they have hundreds of them, toothpaste, different household products. So they used to be vertically integrated and actually produce all the ingredients for their key products with plantation businesses in the tropics around the world, South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. And they sold all of them in the 90s as they said, okay, this isn't the 1800s anymore. Who's making their own ingredients? We're a brand company. And one of them was left, and it was their old business started in 1911 in the Congo. So right in Central Africa, 0 degrees from the equator, right smack in the middle. And I'll talk about it in my next slide, which is like, how did I find all these opportunities? Like, what's the secret sauce to getting them? And they all have it's kind of the same story. It seems very random, but I like to say I just keep showing up. And this one was somebody stood me up for a meeting at a hotel in downtown Toronto, and I was sitting waiting for this guy at the bar for 2 hours. And a guy started talking to me at the bar and found out what I was interested in. And he said, my dad works he's the chief agronomist for the World Bank. If you're ever in London, you should meet him. I did meet him, and he put me on to another guy who was an agronomist who I subsequently hired. And he said to me, after 2 years of working with him, I used to work for Unilever. They have this thing left in the Congo, they probably don't even know what it's worth. Should we go buy it? And I said, for sure. That sounds like a fantastic idea. Completely ridiculous. So it took me about a year to sort that deal out, and it was 4,300 employees. It was, at the time I bought it in 2009, it was a 97-year-old business, a subsidiary of Unilever, and they, for all intents and purposes, written it off. So it's kind of like buying it $1 but taking on a lot of operating risk, financial risk, political risk, figuring out how to do it. So maybe just to bring, hopefully you guys saw a lot of questions that come in, and hopefully there's some more that come out of the little background that I gave you. But wanted to talk about a couple of I'll call it critical success factors. And I said, just keep on showing up. I was my own self. I'm fundamentally an introvert, and I finish work and I would go home and I would read or watch TV shows, and I was very happy doing that. That's cool. I can just do that for the next 99 years. And I had an epiphany one day. I'm getting asked out to can you come for dinner? We want to try and pitch you on this, or come to the baseball game, or come golf with us, or do this. And 100% of the time I would say no, because I didn't want to do that, because I liked an introvert and just be by myself. And then in 1999, I had an epiphany. What if I just said yes to 100% of them? Because I don't want to do any of them. And so I can't pick and choose. So I'm just going to say yes to literally everything. And starting in 1999, I was just then constantly just out meeting people. And in my case, because I was not naturally like that, I had to have that little sort of rule where I had to say yes. Otherwise, I just would have always said no, because that's what I've done my whole life. So I did that, and it put me in all these situations where stuff started coming out of it. And I was talking to Leslie earlier. The biggest deal in renewables came from a cold message on LinkedIn email. So somebody had never heard of and had no connection to me had sent me an opportunity, and it ended up being my biggest deal. I bought a big wind farm on Black Sea in Romania, and that came out of my policy of anybody emails me or messages me on any platform, I will reply. It's impossible for me to reply to every phone call, but every message I've gotten for the last 25 plus years, I reply. And it might be saying sorry, I can't talk, I have no interest in this whatsoever. The end. But I do reply to everything, and it actually has led to so many things. And I don't know how many people said to me years later that somehow I bumped into you, thanks for writing back. Most most guys don't write back when send messages like that. So it's like such an easy, small thing to do that's like paid off for me big time. And I know when I write people, I'm like, why doesn't the guy write back? It's like, you just say no. It takes 2 seconds. So that's been a big one for me. It's super easy. I also try to just be nice, which sounds a pretty silly statement to make, but again, I can say that I developed a relationship in a sort of financial community ecosystem as just being like a really nice guy to deal with. So most of the time, my answer to your question on whether I'm going to do something with you or I'm going to participate or I'm going to get behind it is no. Almost always the answer is no. It doesn't mean I have to be a jerk about it, and it's very easy to be in a good mood when everything's working, but things are not usually working. If you're doing anything that's at all challenging, that's worth doing, somebody would have done it already if it was easy and it was been done 10 years ago. So it's hard. It means it's not going to be working very well at some point, and it's way harder to be nice and be pleasant and be fun to work with. So I've really focused on trying to do that, and just when things are the worst is when I'm going to be the nicest. And it ends up attracting people who are the same, and it's been another critical success factor for me that I can look back and say that's been a winning strategy. Credibility factor. So another question is like, well, how do you get the ideas or the deals? The other one's like, how do you get the money for them? Like that's like an obvious big question. How do you fund these things? So I'd say credibility is like easily and honesty and a reputation of credibility of honesty and integrity trumps being smart, and it trumps a reputation of being smart. Because like smart, a lot of us are smart. I bet every single person in this room is smart, and probably very smart in whatever smart means in the conventional metric of smart. But you need to have a reputation where people's all like, yeah, it might go wrong, I might lose all my money, but it's because things went wrong or the idea didn't work out, not because the guy ripped me off or screwed me over on something. So that, taking out that first layer of distrust on anything when somebody's asking for money, and I didn't grow up in this world, so it's all new to me. I didn't have like sort of family or people around me that were like sort of financially successful or had lots of money. But now I'm in that world, and it's not just a boys club, but I'll use the term old boys club. It's much more pervasive than so it's like any rumor or suspicion you have is like absolutely true. And there's like all sorts of stuff where you just cut through sort of all the trouble of getting through to somebody because you know each other at a different level. And having done one deal, you're like 100 times more credible than the person that's done 0. And if you've done 3 or 4, then money's there. So it comes more for like you can recover from a deal going to 0, and smart people have deals that go to 0. You can't recover from being dishonest or being perceived as dishonest. Finally, the multiplier, I kind of talked about this one already, was like, I never had a marketing budget. So in my investment firm, I had 17 people working for me at the peak, back office, front office, research, nobody in marketing. So I was 100% of the marketing, and I spent $0 on it, because I would take on speaking engagements, and I got the TV thing. That TV thing was like worth infinity dollars from a marketing perspective. It's like credibility, like reach, and everything was massive. And that was like a big. I'm not a social media person, but I through by extension creating and generating all this content, I benefited from it indirectly. Significantly. So it's like been a massive multiplier for me. So it's cost me nothing except for time and energy. So that's been another critical success factor. I've never spent any marketing, anything I've ever done. I've done it all for free. So big win for me there. I'll call those big picture ideas. Like micro, if I have to be really honest with myself, a couple like secrets to success from just the people that are working with me. And so in my case, I've had the same lawyer for 25 years, And he's like kind of retired now, but he just does my stuff because I guess because I'm fun to work with and it's all weird stuff. So it's cool for Leonard to work on. But it's been so helpful to me to have that. And again, I didn't come from this world, so a lot of this stuff is just totally new to me. To have the guy that I trust and is like he's literally like my best friend after 20 plus years. It's just like a huge tactical advantage. So I for every deal, like I put a bunch of cool stuff on the side there. Guess what? It's like 1% of the stuff that I tried or looked at, like actually. So you don't see the other 90% because it's like it didn't happen or it failed or it's like I'm not going to talk about it. So having the guy on speed dial that's helping me like work through all this stuff in the front end, does little micro thing, but that's been like a super critical success factor for me for sure. And then by extension, I got a whole ecosystem. So, if one of you guys is like trying to start a company, it's hard. There's like so many moving parts. Yeah, it's doable. You can do it, and you gotta like find your way through, like I have. But then, like somebody like me, I got a like head start on everything because I got a whole ecosystem. I don't have to like explain myself to like any of the people in the ecosystem. That's like your auditors, insurance, executive search, like headhunters, even guys finding office space, all that stuff, legal. It's just like boom. So like this is what I'm doing. Everybody scatters and like gets the job done. We'll figure out the invoices and like what entity to bill it to later. It's like another little advantage, like for somebody who's been doing it for 25 years. So it's something like that. Doesn't mean it's like obviously you can't start out with that. But it's something good to have or to build up to, and it's totally doable. No rocket science to that. It's just like being a nice person to deal with, and you get to work with the same people over and over again, and it helps a lot. So that's my presentation, guys. I hope you have a bunch of questions, and I hope. I guess my main hope is that just like open the door that. Because you're in math or you're in whatever, you're not on this path. Like everything's possible, and there's guys like me who've done it. So yeah, it's like shoot for it, whatever you want to do. But yeah, I hope you guys have a lot of questions too. Sure.
Ravi, that was like amazing. I'm actually fascinated by your story and just the fact that you're successful in like so many different aspects. I think I'm running to that challenge right now where I actually have a background in health sciences and I'm actually from Laurier, but I love coming here because I want to explore and do different things. So I noticed that a common trend with your story is that you say yes and you show up. So I'm just curious that I think we're all human, like we have a limited amount of hours in a day, and I'm just curious, how do you pick and choose what to bet on and what to invest your time towards? How do you know what to say yes towards that like will work out? I feel like there's a certain strategy to it. Maybe at the beginning when like you're starting out, no, but like lately I've been saying yes to a lot of things, but I think I'm sort of like pulled in like so many different directions now. I'm just curious how you like tackle that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'd say so. Externally, one of the biggest criticisms of me. And I realized, and I think it was around 2010 that I sort of hit this as like I do too many things, and I'm like kind of doing like a half-assed job of some of them as a result. And a few moments where I have my head in my hands, I'm like I shouldn't have like done all these things at once. Like I made a mistake. So a little bit more like I've been pretty scattershot. So now I'm trying to, like I say, I got 2 day jobs, renewables and mining. That's it. Can't do anything else, but I'll sit on some boards and things like that. So that's like a life lesson for me, is like you gotta say no to a bunch of stuff. It might end up working out, you don't know. And then in terms of how do I pick which ones?
Yeah.
There was points in my career where it was more like not desperation, but like I wasn't like I wasn't a chooser, like I was a taker a bit. So like some opportunity came up, I'm like, okay, I want to get into this, so I got to do it. So for example, I wanted to start my first renewable company, and I bought 2 hydro projects, and I thought I didn't know what I was doing because I never done anything before. Like I literally, I'm good at calculus. Like that's what I have no actual training in anything. So I didn't know anything about mining. I didn't know anything about renewables or anything specific. So I bought those 2 hydro projects because that's what I had. I didn't know anybody in the industry. All I knew is like I want to do something in renewables. and they sucked. Like they were really bad acquisitions, and I spent like years digging myself out from under that hole. So I didn't know. I have a different, like my strategy on that front's a bit different. And again, some people, I would say, ridicule it, which is you can like overanalyze stuff. It doesn't mean you don't do the work and do due diligence and try and understand it to the best of your ability. But it's like, I'll use a hockey analogy, like the guy with the faster release actually scores more goals than the person with the more precise shot. And so you're in a competitive environment. Sometimes being able to move the fastest and be the most decisive is actually your best advantage, because everybody can do the same analysis and due diligence. But the person who can actually like get it done is the real like scarce skill set. So I don't have an answer to like how I know, other than it's like I just want to be like, I gotta be in motion. So I'm not gonna be sitting around and I'm not gonna overanalyze stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can feedback what you said. Like I heard it said that if you wait for the perfect opportunity, then you're already too late.
That's totally like, and every single thing that I've done. And so common theme for me is like buying a division of a big company or buying something out of bankruptcy, because I think I'm getting it cheap, and historically I have. And almost everybody looks at the things it's like, but that's like, went bankrupt because of this, or like, it's too small, or it has like, it's in this stupid location. Like, yeah, that's why I'm getting it, because there's something wrong with it. If it was perfect, like it would still, somebody would own it and it would be worth $1 billion. I call them walls of worry. So if it's got 4 walls of worry, then my price is discounted by 4 times, and I gotta climb up over those 4 walls. And if I got a solution in my head how I'm gonna climb those 4 walls, I'm like, boom, wow, let's do it. That's my opportunity. So there's something, if there's not something wrong with it, what's in it for me? So yeah, absolutely.
Have you been involved in PE?
Yeah, like with the family office, we were more public markets, but I've been with PE is more like an exit for me. So I sold my last renewable company to a PE fund specializing in European renewables. When I bought my mining company in New Mexico at a bank, I was out of bankruptcy during COVID, that was bankrupted by a PE firm and cleaned up and restructured. I bought it from them. So I have like lots of interaction with PE, but I'm not a PE guy myself.
First of all, I related to the Western and U of T because I had the same somehow you know, we were accepted.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that you didn't have any experience when you went into hydro and all. So how did you convince investors to invest in you when they saw you didn't have the experience? And on the other side, when you decided to sell, why did you decide to sell that?
So, both good questions. So on the way, it was harder. So for the first one, like the one where I was buying those hydro projects, and by the way, they should have been stuck down because I did pretty dumb deals. I was riding off of my success as an investor. So like I had the early success in my 20s with my investment firm. And so I was perceived as being like, okay, this guy's a smart investor. So I was able to lever that into raising money for things which I actually didn't know anything about. So it like is transparent. Like I wasn't scamming people. I was like quite conspicuous that I didn't know anything about it. But I thought, here's what I bring to the table is I'm a deal guy and I can raise money for stuff. So back me to do this. And in that case, I did 4 more deals that backfilled and like actually created a lot of value in that company. But it was like this. So it took a big dip down. Second part of your question is like, why did I sell? So in that company, so I did 6 different projects. They all cost a lot of money to buy and to build. And we peaked at $97 million in debt. And that was like in 2017. And we're, by any accounting measure, would have been insolvent. And I didn't pay like my lawyers for 3 years. I didn't pay my service providers. Like we had our email shut off. It was like bad. So I call it holding it together with duct tape and crazy glue. So I did that, and because I knew the projects were working and they cash flowed their way out of it, and it was like a virtuous cycle, right? You pay down principal, and then your interest is less. If you had more money, you pay down principal, and interest is less. And by 2022, we were net cash. Like we cash flowed our way out of all that debt. And I had two large shareholders that each owned 20% of the company. And they kind of ganged up and said, like, we both want to sell. And it's like, are you guys nuts? Like, I just spent years, like, we're dead for so many years, and now we're making money coming out of our ears. And you guys want to sell? And they're like, yeah. And I said, no. And they forced me into selling it. And in hindsight, they were 100% correct. Because I got over 100% premium for the company by selling it. Never would have got that in public markets. And the second thing it did is it just unlocked me. I have a partner in that business, 50-50. He actually does all the real work. I just do the hand waving, kissing babies and shaking hands. And it unlocked the two of us to go start the next company, which was Abraxas. And we had even more flexibility with that one because we had the credibility of selling two renewables companies. And being able to do more of what we wanted or what we thought long term without having like more restrictions put on us by investors. So I didn't want to sell it. I would because I didn't have to do anything. All 6 of those operations where we had were making money, and like I was doing nothing. So I'm like, this is awesome. And but it was the right thing to do. They were right.
I think early, especially in your story, you talked a lot about how you jumped into various endeavors, and it seems to me that they were smaller endeavors. I mean, like the number of people working on it were, less than 10, less than 15, whatever. I was wondering if at the time you saw anything in those people, or if looking back now, you can say like there was a pattern of the kinds of people that you were working with that maybe helped you all have the success that you did experience.
Yeah, I think it was an iterative process. So I don't think anybody does. Nobody's an expert on HR and like how to hire and manage people. Like out of the gate, maybe some people are naturally better at it. I think I was like really not good at that part, and so I got like, especially I was put in a position hiring people very young, with very little experience, and so I was attracted to shiny toys. So people with the degrees and right titles on their CV, and then just about one mistake after another. And then I kind of gravitated by iteration to a team, which was like an unusual team. So my chief operating officer for most of my time at my investment company, she really was the guts of the whole thing. Worked for like the Canadian Trade Office in Bangkok. Like she was like a office assistant, but then but she was like she kind of like set her career back by doing that, and like I was able to get her somehow because she was looking for a job in Canada. It was hard to get a job coming back to Canada. And then I had my main investment guy doing the due diligence. Like it's like a classic story. He was driving a truck when I hired him. And he's from Russia, and he had a master's degree in nuclear physics, and was a lieutenant in the army, and had a black belt in karate, by the way. So he's like, "How the hell are you driving a truck, bro?" He's like, "It's like no jobs for us." So I hired that guy, and I was like, "Okay, I should have been able to get that guy." So, but those were like you're hearing about those guys. You didn't hear about the first 15 guys I screwed up on. So it was an iterative process. Like it again, like. My friends who are around me are just like, you just suck at hiring people. Like you just pick the wrong guys all the time and time again. I think I'm a bit better at it now, but it's 25 plus years in. So that's a skill set, and not one that I would.
Just curious about co-op. Did you do co-op while you were here?
I did. I absolutely love the co-op program. And
can you talk a little bit about your experience with that? Because obviously most of our students here do co-op, and so would love to get your philosophy and your take on how to make the most of it.
The only thing I regret about co-op is I did the same job for 3 terms in a row, but it was like so awesome that I would probably just do that again. And I'll tell you where I worked. I worked for a city called Telesat Canada, which is it's in Gloucester, Ottawa, and it's like it was a crown corporation that used to that does like control commercial spacecraft and communication spacecraft. So it was Canadian. When I worked for it was a government job. It was subsequently sold off to Bell Canada and then to a private equity fund, I believe. And it was just like the coolest place to work because I was using math. I was programming in Fortran, if anybody in this room knows what that is, like probably not. And we were actually writing applications that were driving satellites. And so for my 3 terms there, I worked on avoiding radio frequency interference events for geostationary spacecraft. And I was like 17 and I'm like working on this, and we worked 3 12-hour shifts a week. So I mean, it was just like, I did a retinal scan, this is in the 90s, retinal scan to get in the door to the thing. It was like super cool. I couldn't believe I worked there. So I loved it, and they couldn't believe when I decided not to go back. They're like, no, everybody comes back, but it was the government. I was like, I kind of don't want to work for the government. So I was like, I would do something else. And then I worked for, I had like a mishap. I got a job. I wanted to like, I'll go work overseas. As you might have guessed from my background, I like traveling and being in places. So I got a job for working for Seiko in Japan, or an offer, and then for a software company in New York City. And this is another crazy life event that sort of shifted my whole life experience. I took the New York City one instead of the Japan one because it was going to throw me off stream because I had to do 8 months and I didn't want to go off stream from all my friends. So I took the New York City one, and this is pre-September 11th. And there's 3 of us had this job going down to New York, and we're going to spend the summer in New York staying at Columbia University residence, working in Midtown Manhattan. Awesome, right? So it's myself, a guy who's like an Iranian bodybuilder with a shaved head and a beard like this big, and another dude. And the Iranian bodybuilder, he and I just walked through U.S. immigration. Oh, you're going to the States, boom, no problem, whatever. And you're there for the summer internship, no problem. What's the problem, right? We're Canadians. The third guy shows up later, and he had like a nervous breakdown going through the U.S. immigration customs in Pearson, and he showed the guy the letter that the company wrote us as to how to answer questions from U.S. customs immigration, and the guy apparently freaked and said, "What, there's like companies like telling you how to trick us? Like, what is this? And is anybody traveling with you?" They went into the terminal, they fetched us, and they questioned us, and they refused us entry. So job gone. And I had, because like I don't have, my parents don't live in Canada anymore, I had nowhere to go. And there's no cell phones at this time too. So I was at the payphone in Pearson calling people, but it was between work. It was like at the end of the term. So everybody's phone number had changed. And the craziest thing happened, which was, I gotta tell you this story. Some guy came and talked to me, and his name was Peter Ono. He's like, "Well, are you okay, man?" And I was like, "Oh, I just told the story." He's like, "Oh, I just graduated from Waterloo. In fact, one of my best friends has the same last name as you. Do you know him?" I'm like, "No, I have no idea who that guy is." And I literally, so I sorted something out. I found somebody who could pick me up at the airport. I rented an apartment in Toronto, as I don't know where else to go. I thought, I'll find a job, try and figure it out. And I got a cell phone. It was my first cell phone. It was 1995. Nokia one, right? Great one. And I gave the phone number to exactly one person, which was my dad, who lives in India, or lived in India. So like a few hours later, the phone rings, and I'm like, it's my dad. Like, who else is my phone number, right? It's like, where it's Bell Canada calling me, and it was the dude who went to school with the Waterloo guy. I was like, he's like, "Yes, is this so?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." I'm like, who are you? And he explained the story. I got your phone number. I thought I'd give you a call. And he had looked up my emergency contact number on the Waterloo system. And so it was my dad in India. Called my dad in India, got my phone number, which I just got like 2 hours before. And then he called me and he said, "Oh, I'll come over." And he saw my place. I rented a place downtown Toronto for $300 a month. And it was like cockroaches. Like, it was disgusting. He said, "This place is disgusting. You can go to sleep on my couch for this term." And I ended up sleeping on the guy's couch for the term. I found a job in Toronto, and then friends with that guy, close friends with the guy to this day. That was 30 years ago. Yeah, but it was literally because I was sitting on my suitcase next to the payphone, and a guy who I still don't know, Peter Ono, came to talk to me. He's like, "Hey, you have the same last name as my friend from Waterloo." So yeah.
So you did math contest in what applications that give you for your future outside of math, and what fields that you prosper in?
Like during school or like before?
After school, right? Because
Yeah, so I think like math, like I get this question a lot. They're like, "What do you do math? Like, how can you be doing this?" Or like what is anything? I have 3 kids, and they're so like, what do I need this for? I'm never going to use geometry. You're not going to use anything you're going to do in school, right? So to me, the answer I give is like math is the ultimate in problem solving. You're presented with a problem. You have a toolkit. You got to come prepared with your toolkit of things that you've learned, all your tools that you have there. You have to analyze the problem, figure out what tools I'm going to apply to this one, and figure out what is this problem actually asking you to solve, and you solve it. And that's life, so it's applicable to anything in life. And I think you would see more sort of mobility of people coming from this math background to things like business or things like, startups and things like that, because it is actually so applicable, except for there is a missing ingredient and maybe a sample bias associated to it as well, which is I think that sales. So one thing that I certainly didn't get here was like I never stood up in front of people trying to present something, not once. I never had to like sell anybody on anything. And so, you have to do that in other programs, and that's, a critical skill set. So I think that would give a lot more portability or sort of like versatility to people coming from the math background if they had that in their toolkit as well. But like otherwise, like, I'm doing mining, renewable energy, and financial stuff. I've never taken an accounting course and never done economics, but I made it through 5 years here, so I solved some problems. And I was able to learn some stuff too, right?
The people you've hired that have been good for you, but they come from unconventional backgrounds. Like are they like kind of like they go really fast with a problem and they just start self-starters and they don't wait for you to, like they have their own initiative. Like, is that why?
So there's different. I mean, there's like I have to employ hundreds of people. At times it's been thousands, so it's different people at different levels. But like my partner on the renewable side, like we're 50-50 partners, but he really actually does all the work. And that's like, not that I'm saying like I'm lazy or something like that. I'm the high level guy, and when we had to win a deal with the government of Canada, so I'm the guy who's with the politicians and I'm like selling like, we're so awesome, we're the best guys to work with, and we can raise all the money, and then we actually need to raise the money. That's my role. So he and I work together like this because he's flying around. He's on over 100 flights a year. He's actually doing the stuff like getting components in China and figuring out the permits on site, that sort of thing. Same thing with my mining. I'm not there in South Africa. I'm not in New Mexico here. I'm making sure the right butts are in the right seats. Making sure we have the money. I'm there to find and negotiate the next deal. And the guys, like I have like phone calls every single day, but these are by definition, I'm hiring people who are completely independent self-starters. Maybe don't ever want to be the number one face guy, but are totally competent at their jobs and like actually really enjoy the fact that I'm not in their face. Like that is actually like for a lot of people, it's a feature of the job. Is like I'm just not breathing down their neck.
But like, those first people that you hired that were not good, like what kind of mistakes did you make in doing something about it?
It's the shiny toy syndrome. So like it's very easy to get attracted to the person whose CV looks the best. So I thought very highly of my own degree. So I also respected other people with like nice degrees, with nice job titles. Like certainly when you're younger, it's easier to get impressed by people who have important job titles. Now I don't find it impressive at all because like who knows how you got there. Let's see if you actually are doing anything. So I think there's like, it was almost like a 0% success rate for me in hiring senior people for the first many years of my career. And it's, like I said, it's been like from my friend group, from my peer group, it's been a serial criticism of me. It's a skill set. Like you gotta sit in people and like figure out, was this person gonna be good at their job? And that's not an easy one.
This is more around being the face of the company. You mentioned you want to deal with the politicians and all. So I run a telecom startup, and now I have to deal with the government? Any advice? What have you seen? What should we not do?
Well, so first of all, politicians are prone to change. So they get over-invested in one because tomorrow might be a different person altogether. As an example, when we won our project it's the biggest project I've ever got, our renewable project in Eastern Canada. It was all Liberal government, and all the people have now changed. It's all conservative. There's not one bureaucrat, and the bureaucrats take longer to change over, but all those people change position too. So it's 100% change. So again, it's a skill. That one is I just use one word: authenticity, and that's a good one to give you as an example. We went into a government-run process. Our project there, the capex is $10 billion, $9 billion US dollars actually. And I did not want to do it. I was like, this is stupid. Like my partner and we're two guys. Like we've never done anything bigger than like $100 million project. Like it's like kind of a joke. Like people just laugh at us. And then we're going up against the biggest companies in the world, from South Korea, Europe, US. Everybody was competing. So they were really good projects. I'm like, they're probably going to give us 7 or 8, and 31 submitted proposals. And it was a year-long process. And they ended up only giving out 4. We got all these like $100 billion companies that lost. So why the other 3 they got were all multi-billion dollar companies. And it's like, it's just my partner, like we're nothing, like we're a zero company. So why did we get it? So we presented ourselves from day one as the scrappy underdogs. And so we got really close to the community we're operating in. And our biggest advocates were the mayor and the town council of the town that we were prospectively going to be based. So they were lobbying. And basically it came to like, you're screwing over this town if you don't give these boys their project. And then we presented ourselves from day one, because like otherwise, like there's no faking. Like we're not Brookfield, we're not like some $100 billion behemoth. We just said like from day one, I used exactly like, you're the scrappy underdogs. We're the guys you're going to be rooting for to get this. And it's going to be a feel-good story, like watching Rudy or something when you get it. And you're going to be so happy. And we were the most likable guys in the room. That's just all we did, and we just owned it. And we pushed it through, and the guys in the government they only liked that, like when we go to the conference, they only go to dinner with us. And it's like an intentional snub of everybody else, because they're like, okay, we're gonna hang out with you guys and make sure everybody knows it. So that's just because we were the most authentic, like honest guys about it. And just a footnote to that story, they gave out 4 projects, the other 3 have all died. So they're all big multi-million-dollar ones. We sold 40% of ours to a company called Electricité de France. It's the largest utility in Europe. So we brought in like a sort of a giant company to offset our lack of giantness, and our project's like still proceeding. So they all feel very vindicated too, that like we told you, like these guys were you guys to back. So it worked in that case. So far so good.
I think we probably have time for one more question. We do have some that are pre-registered, but it looks like we have another question.
It's over the next 5 years, what sectors of the economy do you foresee are really good opportunities for like deal making and like
Opportunities for
deal making and
so this is another one of those times. Like I entered kind of the business world at one of those times, the end of the 90s, where everything was getting turned upside down. It's happening again. So AI is obviously part of it. I think how money works is fundamentally changing. That's probably not something that maybe you think about a lot, but we're at an extremely chaotic time in terms of like global economics, where and I use mathematical terms to describe like the US, Canada, European debt problems. It's an intractable problem. There is no plausible set of inputs that will solve the amount of debt that's owed. It cannot be paid back. By the same token, it cannot be defaulted on. And so I'll use another very math reference from Star Trek, if anybody's familiar with the term Kobayashi Maru. So Kobayashi Maru scenario, it's a Star Trek reference, is any situation where you can only lose. So it's like a test of character, like how do you choose to lose? And the global financial system is currently in a Kobayashi Maru scenario, where it's how are we gonna melt down? Are we gonna melt down this way or that way? And the way that I think we're gonna melt down is the way that the system melted down, although it was a lot less painless at the time, post-World War II, was through massive inflation and a debasement of paper money.
In the 70s?
No, late 40s and 50s, you had, this is before all our times, but you had massively negative interest rates. So you had this huge inflation in real estate prices. The difference between now and then is you had the baby boom. You also had the tail end of the Industrial Revolution. You had massive productivity gains. Now we got everything's going the other way. We have all this debt sitting on our heads. We have productivity gains from AI, but we also have the demographic implosion, especially in places like China. So what does that mean for what sectors? Anything with real assets, but also anything of how money works. So the whole world of cryptocurrencies, most of it's obviously garbage and it's like stuff we're just trying to figure out as we go. But stable coins are gonna play it, like, I'm biased with my association with Tether, but stable coins are increasingly playing a critical role in how the global financial system works. And there's more linkages there. Like if you look at the US government, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, they're intimately involved in cryptocurrencies. So you have a very unusual situation where the US government is actually supporting this. So I don't know what they are, but I can intuitively say, like, the way money works, the whole payment system of how we pay for things and money's transferred, the whole system works is changing super fast. So there's going to be lots of opportunities in that sector.
Thank you, Ravi. This has been fantastic. You have probably one of the most unique careers that I've seen out of our CS grads. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you everybody else for being here as well. Before we break for some networking, I did want to say if you have a sticker on the back of your seat, you have won a prize. So check it out. And please come on down, introduce yourselves to Ravi. If you have questions that we weren't able to do in that timeline, we do still have a few more minutes in the room. But please feel free to come and introduce yourself to Ravi. Thank you.